Is tobogganing going to be something that we're only going to learn about in history books one day?
This is the Earth Day Party Podcast with Shannon Burns and Sarah Christie. Get in, bestie. We're going to clean up the planet.
Welcome back to another episode of the Earth Day Party. Hi, I'm Shannon.
I'm Sarah.
And we are going to get into another conversation with an expert about the planet, sustainability, and what we can do to make a difference, especially this Earth Month.
What are your thoughts on winter, Shannon?
I love winter, and I really try to savor it because of how hot summers get. So I really just enjoy the cold as much as I possibly can. So my opinion on winters have shifted a lot in the last couple of years. And I love wearing sweaters.
It's a win-win.
It is a win-win. What do you think about winter?
Oh my gosh, I love winter. I actually have a fun memory of us in the winter when we were coming back. You were visiting me when I lived in Kitchener, and there was a massive snowstorm, Kitchener, Ontario. And we were coming back from probably a night out.
It was a night out, yes.
And there was a big snowstorm, and we all stayed outside and had a snowball fight. And
that is such a fun memory as well. And so many childhood memories I have too. Like sometimes when I step outside and I smell that winter air, it brings me back to just being a kid and putting on my snow pants to go outside for recess and building a snowman with my siblings and all of that. So winter, it gets a bad rap.
And putting all the mittens and whatnot on the dryer vent to warm when you come back inside.
With our boots upside down.
Yeah. When you love winter, though, it is a bit of a mixed roller coaster relationship because it's also emotional right now, seeing the drastic change in winter. So one of my fondest memories of winter growing up is my dad would take us all tobogganing on New Year's Eve. I can't tell you a recent New Year's Eve where we would have been able to do that. And so the thing about snow is you can see the change, right? It's either here or it isn't there.
Yeah, it's like a white Christmas every year. We want that snow by Christmas Day, but even that, it doesn't always happen these days.
Right, that Hallmark Christmas movie that I think everybody outside of Canada assumes we have. But is it going to be a thing of the past?
Yeah, and that's what we get into in today's conversation with Natalie Knowles. She is such an expert in all of this. Do you want to intro a little bit more about her?
Natalie Knowles from Protect Our Winters Canada, research specialist with Protect Our Winters Canada, professional alpine ski racer who won 2 NCAA National Championships and represented Canada at our World Junior Champions and the World University Games. Her research focuses on mitigating climate change, managing impacts, and using outdoor recreation and tourism for sustainable socioeconomic development. And currently a PhD candidate at the University of Waterloo. This was such an exciting conversation to have because winter is such a big aspect of being a Canadian. And when I was prepping for this interview, this line stuck out to me. I read, "There are few industries more concerned about the climate crisis than the ski industry." So This is a really exciting conversation, but also a really important one.
Yeah, definitely. I think I had a lot of questions going into this as well. So she's such a perfect person because she came with the facts and she has so many answers. But I really wanted to hear from her if she thinks that winter is sticking around. Is snow going to be something of the past that we describe to people that you don't really see anymore? And should we be savoring these moments even more? So yeah, it's very fascinating.
Here it is, our conversation with Natalie Knowles.
Can you explain what POW is and what it has to do with climate change?
So POW Canada is an organization that's looking to unite the outdoor recreation community across Canada to advocate on behalf of that community for climate action. Our thinking is everybody that does outdoor recreation in the outdoors is both feeling the impacts of climate change, and they've got this vested interest in protecting outdoor spaces, our environment. And while we believe, everything that everybody does individually is obviously very important, but really the big challenge is that larger scale political change. So we're really trying to bring all of those individual voices together to speak to those larger policy level changes, and how can we, work together and advocate across the country and kind of unite under that shared interest of outdoor recreation and doing fun activities outside.
So speaking of policy change, what projects are currently in place to protect our winters?
Our big sort of underlying driver is to ensure that Canada meets our contribution to the Paris Climate Agreement. And so some of those bigger scale decarbonization, transitioning to renewable energy, and then at the same time, nature-based climate solutions. So protecting our outdoor spaces, ensuring, we've got more wilderness and wild spaces that are both great for outdoor recreation. People can get outside and build that connection with nature, but also is essential for climate change and sequestering carbon. And
Yeah, as somebody who works or who is outside a lot and works with people who are always outside, what do winter sports and just winter in general in Canada look like compared to like 10, 15 years ago?
That's a great question. And it's an interesting one, especially right now. I'm from Ontario, where we've just seen crazy amounts of snow in the last couple days even, but we're seeing an overall downward trend of how long our winters are. So we're seeing them start a little bit later, end a little bit earlier, and more of that variable conditions in the middle. So basically, if we stay below zero, we're going to continue to have snow, but even micro changes are just bringing that threshold above that freezing point more and more often, kind of in the middle of winter. So seeing that, rains in January in Whistler or Tremblant or wherever it is, more variable winters for sure.
Now, it's a great point because we're in southwestern Ontario too, where we're feeling we're still trying to dig our way out of all that snowstorm. So I'm sure you've been asked this in your work through advocacy, but how is global warming real if we're still seeing all this snow?
Absolutely. And that's one of the big things with climate change and kind of why the world, as we learned more and more about it, transitioned from that idea of global warming to climate change. And so we're seeing changing climates, which means more and more variability, and more extremes. So we're absolutely seeing shorter winters in general, but that we're also seeing these like polar vortexes where it's -40 in places, and we're seeing these giant dumps of snowfall. Like I think Quebec or Montreal got their average annual snowfall in like a 48-hour period the other day. That's insane. And it's the same with all these other weather features. We're seeing, if you look at some of the averages, they might look okay or normal, but we're seeing, a big period of drought and then all of the rain from one year, in one day. And then a flooding event. And so these sort of extremes. So we'll still see snow and we'll still see some of those regular features for sure. That's not going away, at least not anytime soon. But yeah, having more of these, extreme events, giant dumps of snow, and then 20-degree, last year around this time, we were having flowers start to bloom and it was like +10 in Southern Ontario. So seeing that difference both within a season and, across different seasons.
Yeah. And there's a lot of people too that dislike winter. But we were talking before this about how it's like you almost enjoy it now more knowing that it could go away one day, or all this snow that we might not have in the future. And winter is also really important for our ecosystem too, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's like essential. I love growing plants and things, and I was growing cherries and peaches and things like that, or maple syrup's another one. My parents' farm has maple trees that harvest syrup, and they need that cold period. All of them need that to either, have the sap run or to germinate seeds or pollinate flowers. Having that winter period is like an essential part of our entire ecosystem in Canada, of a freeze and a rest and then a rejuvenation in spring. And so if we don't have a period that's long enough, that's cold, it's going to have all these sort of cascading impacts across our ecosystem, and we don't even totally understand or know what would happen.
What inspired you to want to be involved in the climate crisis conversation, and how has your view on the climate crisis changed since you started getting educated and working in it?
I got into it through outdoor recreation. I was a big skier, and so that's really what drew me to it and brought the awareness to me of just, seeing this impact an activity that I like to do, different places that I had a connection with, and seeing them change as climate change kind of accelerated. The one big thing I've learned through the more I research is that there's, which I always think is really hopeful, it's a little bit scary, but also super hopeful, is that there's a very big difference when we do climate modeling and we look at what the impacts could be in the future, of the future that we see if we follow, the path that we're on and we're emitting at huge levels. That future can be pretty scary, super big changes. The pathway that if we, meet our Paris climate agreements, which are totally reasonable and doable, that future is super beautiful and really exciting. And there is winter and there is tons of snow, and that divide of seeing, those negative possibilities, but also the positive possibilities and the co-benefits that kind of come along with it. If we can transition to renewable energies or have public transit systems or have local food systems and things that are sustainable and that can help us reach those goals, it's both a really positive climate future and then all these co-benefits that kind of come along with it.
Okay, so we're not totally doomed.
No.
Okay, cool.
But that's kind of the messaging that's out there. That's
yeah, totally. Like, I feel personally, like sometimes I'm like, do we even have a future to look forward to? Like, should I be saving for retirement? So yeah, what advice do you have for people who feel the same way that I do?
Yeah, definitely is that there's tons of hope out there, but it does take people to get involved. And that's really what we're trying to do, is bring people together, find ways where they can go beyond. It's really hard to feel like you're making a difference when you're like, recycling in your own home or whatever. But so how can we bring people together? That's still important, but bring people together to kind of, make change in their community or make change in their province or make change federally. And how can we try and create those avenues for people. And I feel like the more that you kind of get involved or do something, the more hopeful you start to become of like, you're part of something. And then there's people around you that are also doing positive things, and you kind of surround yourself with that rather than scrolling on the news and like just seeing the like, oh no, we're totally screwed. So I think the other way of building that community around working together and hopeful energy. And
you mentioned community. This felt really hopeful, learning this piece of information on the Protect Our Winters Canada website. It mentioned 50% of emissions in this country are in the control of municipal governments, which I hear that and I'm like, I can go knock on my mayor's door. That feels really hopeful. So do you have any advice for
exactly,
us to go back to our community? Like, what kind of action can we be taking directly in our little circle?
Absolutely. That's like one of our key things. And exactly like you said, like you really can make a difference in your town and in your municipality, and everybody in your municipality, there already is that sort of, shared idea. And the people that are in municipal governments or municipal staff, they want to protect your community as well. So they're also super open and keen to hear from community members. And it's also a really like accessible. The more that they hear from community members that this is what everybody cares about, the more they're going to push, and that they can push. They do have that power to make these changes. Like we say, it's 50% of emissions is within control of the municipality, and so much can be done from letter writing or calling up your local MP or whatever it is. It's super accessible and it's super impactful. Or there's town halls, or there's opportunities to comment on projects or pitch new ideas to town councils and things like that are just, they want citizens to engage. That's the avenue that we have for citizens to get involved and have their voices heard.
Knowing the warming trajectory that we're on, can you just paint us a best case, worst case scenario for winters in Canada? Because I think we were talking about this before. I think winter is so powerful because it's the season that we can visually see the change.
Yeah, definitely. And that's exactly, how we came to it as well. In our kind of best case scenario, our ski seasons are a little bit shorter. In Ontario, I think it's like goes from say 110 days or so to about 95. Quebec is a little bit more, has a longer season already, and it shortens a little bit less. So it's maybe 120 days to 110. BC and Alberta is quite resilient. It's quite a long season, 140, 50 days. And BC is a little bit more vulnerable as well with the coast and, kind of more temperate, warmer, wetter environment already. So that's with like best case scenario. We've still got kind of really great winters. Our worst case scenario is a little bit drastic. It's, in Ontario, it could be as less than a month of winter, and BC would be impacted significantly as well, especially in sort of the coast. And those are sort of only when we're tracking, one variable like snow or something like that. There's so many other factors. We're seeing extreme heat days go up, forest fires, we've already seen a lot of those. And so the conditions for those could increase as well. And so all these sort of different factors. But again, the low emissions trajectory is really positive. It's really similar to our, like what we would, I guess, consider normal at this point, kind of across the board. But yeah, so it's a big difference between worst case, best case.
That's good. I thought I would leave this conversation just feeling more depressed, but I'm feeling hopeful. So thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Awesome. I'm like glad that's the goal, is to get people, feeling like there's a way to get involved and a way to make a difference.
And that is our conversation with Natalie Knowles, really the expert on all things winter.
Did it make you love winter even more?
Oh, definitely. Like I was saying, I feel like I have been savoring winter more each and every year, and this is going to make me savor it even more, knowing that our winters are getting shorter. Also, just how important winters are for the cycle of nature and animals and plants and all of that. It's really important to, enjoy it while we have it.
We need it. One of the messages that Natalie shared that didn't make it into the podcast conversation was helping people learn to love it, because we understand that not everybody likes snow, but just being intentional about spending time, going out to make a snow angel if you have kids, or honestly, if you're an adult, just spending time walking when it's the fresh snow, not the stuff that's covered in slush and you can see everyone's coffee cups and whatnot, but just appreciating it, because once you appreciate it, you're going to feel inclined to also want to protect it. One of the cool things about Protect Our Winters too, if you go to their website, they do a lot of work with ski resorts globally in helping them transition to greener practices. And that's something that Natalie really focuses on her work with ecotourism. So it's promising.
It is very promising. And I think that's always my big question too, where I'm like, should we be scared of what's happening? Is there hope with what's happening? So I think she was really reassuring in that conversation, which I feel like was my biggest takeaway this week, that that there is hope and that something can be done.
Right. What are you going to try to do differently now that we've had that conversation?
I'm going to not complain as often when my boots are all wet, when I'm coming inside and I'm slipping and falling, when I just want to go on a walk around my neighborhood. I'm going to love the earth a little bit more and the snow that comes with it. What about you?
Really look into the work that can be done in my municipality. Like she said, that fact about the 50% of the emissions coming from the municipality, that's huge. I just moved to a new city within the past year, so I have so much homework I can be doing about what groups are available, what work is already being done, and where I can add an extra voice. So I have homework.
Yeah, it makes you really believe, too, that things can be done on a local level, which I think sometimes we think it's all the big guys and the big companies that we have no control over. But there are things that we can do, so it's good to hear.
Totally. Also very curious, if you're listening to this episode and you don't like winter, just how do you feel about it now? Let us know.
Did it help a little bit? Because it might be going away. Thank you so much for listening to another episode. I'm always learning so much, so I'm really excited for what's next. Earth Day Party Podcast is in support of WWF Canada. Help protect wildlife and fight climate change during Earth Month with a gift to WWF Canada. You can give now at wwf.ca/earthmonth.